Okay, so I just made a video on how to get both orbs, both the cost orb and the fire rage orb. And I'm gonna be honest, for both infinite and story mode, this cost orb is honestly almost useless. There's only actually I don't know. It could be very situational in story mode, but in story most of the time I think the only use or the only good use to put this cost orb to is salesman. Basically, just instead of putting down salesman on the very first wave, or no, before the first wave on wave 0, instead of getting 70 out of doing that, you can actually upgrade him once and get 156, if I remember correctly. I think it was 156. That's the only use for cost orb. I feel like everything in infinite. I still use him in infinite. What I do on infinite is I give the cost orb to Kuma. Instead of costing 600, he costs 500, and he can defend, I guess. But honestly, I don't even need that. I can just bring in alt account with literally anything because infinite is easy for early waves. But where's the orbs? Here it is. But yeah, this cost orb is pretty useless for everything else. It's very situational to actually put on another unit in story mode. But most of the time, you're just gonna put on salesman if you have the cost orb. Now for the fire rage orb, I think this is a much better orb for both story and infinite. Unfortunately, in infinite, this actually is pretty much useless on most units. Because like for example, if I put it on Gojo, or no, Gojo is a time slot. If I put it on Kuma, I'm gonna use Kuma a lot. If I put it on Kuma, he has 68,000 at max, with max level, max buff. He has 68,000 damage. But with the Fire Rage Orb, he's only getting 800 more damage. So it might not even reach 69,000, honestly. It's a pretty bad orb for most units. The only really good units, I should say, to put it on is Light, which gives him from 107,000 to 161,000. But honestly, Light isn't even that good anymore. So really, the only good unit to actually put it on is Meta Knight. And it's a very good buff for Meta Knight. I'll say that, to say the least. It goes from 5,370 to 10,000 10,740, right? I think. Anyways, it's gonna give you about a 15,000 damage buff. So in testing, I've realized that Meta Knight is the only good unit to put the fire orb on as of right now. It basically just gives you 15,000 more damage. So from 68,000, he's actually getting 84,000 because, there's 370 to go in. But 84,000 damage per swing instead of 68,000 allows you to easily kill all the air units with no help other than, buffing and time stops. It's really that easy. And I was able to skip from 56 to 58, but it comes really close. So, from wave 1 to 58, but it comes really close. So I just skipped from wave 1 to 57 with Meta Knight. Now for the cost orb, for the fire rage orb in story mode, this can be used on a lot of units, but from testing, I realized that burn, bleed, and poison units actually get the most out of this, since it boosts their initial damage, plus they have 5 more ticks to deal with that amount of damage. It's pretty insane. Now, I only have Roy here because he's only used for Trial 3, but other than that, you're never gonna use Roy, right? I hope so. Is there any good other? I think there's other good units that you can use instead, right? Maybe not. Or maybe Roy is still good. But yeah, Roy, you can give that damage orb. Although, I think Rengoku actually benefits from it a lot more since, it goes from 214 to 429, and then you get 5 ticks from 429. It's very good on what's his name, Rengoku, for story mode. But I think something really underrated is going to be Erwin. Now, it doesn't increase his cap. His cap is still 200% damage. But early on, like one buff is going to go from 75% to 128%, which I think is amazing. But also, if you're going to Erwin chain, instead of getting 3, so basically, instead of buffing 3 times to get a max buff. You can actually only buff twice, and it'll still give you a max buff. And if you're doing an Irwin site like a Irwin chain, you only need 2 cycles for a max buff, which is very useful in story mode, especially in like a harder story mode, you know, in extreme or even like the late story modes. It's very useful. You can also put it on like anything else, like Jotaro for decelerates, you know, 716 to all the way up to 1432. It's still very good on other units, but Burn gets definitely the most out of it. And Irwin, I think Irwin's gonna be very underrated. It's very good on Irwin for Irwin chaining. So yeah, that's about it. They should definitely buff this cost orb for how hard it is, and it makes sense that it's weaker than Fire Rage Orb, but at the same time it doesn't, because it's a rare and Fire Rage is an ultra rare, but it's harder, so I don't think it should be. In the future, when Trial 3 Extreme is easier, then it makes sense because the level requirement is lower. But for now, I think that this cost orb should definitely be buffed. Like, it is very useless on anything that isn't Escanor. Or Bulma. Bulma works too. Yeah, there's only very few situations where this is going to come clutch on anyone else. But yeah, that's about it.